Hello and welcome back to the Joyful Soul Creates. Today I have 10 cards to share with you using the Stamptember card kit from Simon Says Stamp. This is actually last year's Stamptember card kit, so 2017, not 2018, but I never got round to making with it, so I thought with it being Stamptember again, although it's almost over, but I thought now would be as good a time as any to make a video with it. There is another Stamptember card kit out now for this year, and I will link to that one down below because this one is no longer available, but you can buy some of the elements of this card kit, so I will make sure to link to those as well. For my first card, I'm using some of the patterned paper. This is some fun diagonal rainbow stripes, and I spruced it up a bit by adding some glitter peel-offs from Love from Lizi all along the edges of each colour stripe. I just thought that added a bit of fun and sparkle to the card. And I'm going to adhere it to my white card base with some double-sided tape. And then I have some foam squares on the back of this party rectangle, which was from a cut apart from the pattern paper sheet, as well as the giraffe, which is one of the bits of ephemera that came in the kit. I'm using foam squares because I'm pretty much out of foam tape. I'm almost out of foam squares as well, to be honest, so I really need to get some more. And once I'm happy with how they are, I will adhere those onto the pattern paper panel, and that will complete my first card. This kit has so many things in it that I didn't actually manage to get to use anywhere near all of it. There's a lot of stuff that I didn't even touch. I mostly concentrated on the pattern papers and the ephemera, and I also bought in the stamp set for a few things as well. So for my second card, I'm going to use the second party rectangle cut apart thing. There were 2 sheets with the cut aparts on them. Some of the designs in the paper pack you had doubles of, and some you just had one of. So for this one, I'm again using some pattern papers for my background panel, and I'm using 2 this time, which I've layered together with a kind of triangle angle, if that makes sense. And again, I'm going to edge with the glitter peel-offs, and I will bring these in quite a lot in this card kit video. I really enjoy these peel-offs. They're a lot of fun to work with and very useful for just kind of adding that little extra something to finish off pattern papers and just make them look complete. So then I'll add the party rectangle, and this time I'm using a little dog ephemera that says happy birthday. And for this card I just adhered everything flat. I felt like the layers of the pattern paper gave the look of dimension, so I didn't need to pop anything up. Then we shall move on to card number 3. Here I'm going to be using a couple of the acetate pieces. I didn't like how see-through these were, which sounds silly because they're acetate, so of course they're see-through, but it didn't quite work for what I wanted to do, so I'm going to back them onto some white card. So I just covered this piece of white card with double-sided tape on the top side and then pressed the acetate pieces onto them. I'll use my anti-static powder tool to take away the stick around the acetate pieces, and this just makes it easier to cut without my scissors sticking to the paper. So then I will fussy cut around them, and this will leave me with the same acetate pieces, the same designs, but they have a white background rather than being clear. And I think it's still good to use the acetate pieces rather than, they differ from the ephemera because they have the kind of shine to them from being plastic rather than paper, so it's still worth them being acetate even if you get rid of the see-through look of them. Then I'm going to use 2 more pieces of pattern paper. There's the ice cream pattern paper that I used for my background panel, and then I put another piece of that orange pattern paper as a strip diagonally across it. And I thought this looked kind of like waffles, which seemed appropriate for ice cream. I topped it with an oval ephemera piece which has the treat yourself sentiment and the little ice creams and lollies on it, which seemed perfect for this. And then I'll just use some Simon Says Stamp craft glue to adhere the acetate pieces before adding the panel to my yellow card base, which completes my 3rd card. So for card number 4, I decided to take a break from the pattern papers and pull out the stamp set, and I'm going to do some watercolouring. So I have the balloon and a sentiment from the stamp set, and I'm going to mask off the balloon, so I just stamped it onto some scrap paper. I'll fussy cut out the basket for the bottom portion and the balloon itself, and I will put some Tombow monomolte liquid glue on the back of each of the pieces of paper and let it dry until it's tacky, because when the Tombow dries it's repositionable, so it's great for a mask. The kit did come with some, I think it's mulatto masking liquid in a pen, which is great if you want to be doing wet colouring on top of your mask. The paper wouldn't work for that, but as I was just going to be doing ink blending over the mask, I decided just to make paper masks for this. I'm using my favourite things mini cloud stencil to add some clouds all across the watercolour panel, and this watercolour paper did come in the kit, I just trimmed it down a bit. And I'm using Spun Sugar Distress ink to give these soft pink clouds for my background. It does get pink into the letters, but I didn't really mind that, so I'll be painting over it anyway. And actually I probably wouldn't have needed to mask the balloon, but I thought better to be on the safe side. Next I'm going to paint the balloon and the letters. I'm actually using my stencil as a palette. I just pressed my ink pads into it, and I'm using Mermaid Lagoon Distress Oxide and also Worn Lipstick Distress Oxide. I started out with the Spun Sugar, but it wasn't quite a deep enough colour, so I switched to the Worn Lipstick. And just some very simple painting using a Wink of Stella pen as a water brush, which adds some shimmer as you paint. Once I'd completed the painting, I set it aside to dry and worked on my card base. I just embellished it very simply with 3 strips of the glitter peel-offs, and then I will add the watercolour panel over the top using my T-square ruler to make sure it's lined up. A final embellishment is some Pebbles Birthday Wishes Puffy stickers. I used 3 balloons just to finish off the bottom of the watercolour panel. Just had a bit of extra interest, and I chose blue and pink because that matched the colours I'd used on the rest of the card. I used the stamp set again on my 5th card, and I'm going to do some tone on tone stamping to create my background using the diamond from the set to start with, and I'm using Altenew Dusk ink, which I felt worked nicely with the colour of the card base to be tone on tone. And then I also went in with a star from the stamp set and just filled in some of the gaps. I didn't really add much stamping down the centre portion of the card because I knew I would be adding my pattern paper there. I'm actually using 2 pattern papers. These are both snippets from other cards, from the 1st and 2nd cards. I'm just lining them up across the centre, layering them together using double-sided tape to stick them. And then I have this happy birthday banner from one of the cut-apart pieces, which I lined up using my T-square ruler to make sure it's straight. As a final embellishment, I went in with some Seabreeze Nuvo drops. These ones are jewel drops, so they're translucent when they dry, and that completes my card. So that was card number 5. I used more pattern paper for card number 6. I have a purple card base, and I'm attaching the kind of bokeh look, bokeh, I'm not sure how you say that, pattern paper onto the card base, and I'm using a panel that almost completely covers the card base, just with a slight reveal around the edge. And then I'm going to use some of the ephemera to create my topper. My idea for this card completely changed as I went along. This wasn't what I was originally planning to do, but I liked the way it turned out anyway. So I'll put some glue on the bottom of the 3 candle ephemera pieces, and I put a bit too much on the first one, so I just lifted it up with the other 2 to help get glue on all 3 of them. And then I'll use the grid lines on my craft mat to help me line up the candles so they're evenly spaced, and I'll press the sentiment ephemera over the top of the candles so that they will adhere behind them. This ephemera piece has kind of sprinkles on it, so I thought it makes a good birthday cake. And once the candles had dried, I used some more Tombow monomolte liquid glue to adhere the sentiment cake to my card base, which completes card 6. For card number 7, I went very subtle. Pretty much all my other cards are very bright and colourful, and this card I just decided to stamp a kind of dreamy scene. I'm using both sizes of clouds from the stamp set, and I've created several masks for them, and I'm stamping directly on my card base with Barely Beige ink, which doesn't really show up very well in the video, but you can see in the picture how it looks. So I'm just adding the clouds and adding masks on top of them each time so that they won't overlap with each other, and just keep going building up my cloud line. And I kind of alternate between large and small clouds just to add a bit of variation to them. And once I'm happy with the cloud line, I stamp my balloon, the hot air balloon, and the castle. I want the castle to look as though it's sitting in the clouds, and the balloon will be flying in front of the clouds. So once I have those stamped down, and I double stamp them just to make sure they're properly stamped, I mask those off as well and add some more clouds, and then I will bring in this dream word. It's kind of a gold sticker, very sticky on the back, so I almost got it stuck down in the wrong place, but I managed to peel it back up with the help of my tweezers, and the reverse tweezers were very useful for getting it properly into place. So I just lay that over the top of my stamping, and that completes card 7. You can kind of see here as I show it, you can kind of see, but it shows up better in real life than it does on camera. Another bright and colourful card, this time for number 8, and I did some of the prep for this off screen because my camera died, so I have 4 of the cutter parts plus the sentiment cutter part, so 5 cutter parts, and I matted them each on some green pattern paper, and then I'm just working out how I want to arrange them on my pink card base. Then I'm going to use my T-square ruler to help me get them lined up properly, because I'm going to make a kind of grid with them, and this does look best if they're more or less straight and aligned with each other. So I'm again using the Tombow glue because this gives me a little bit of wiggle room to get them properly into place before it holds them completely. So then I did the top 2 off screen or off camera, and then I'll use foam tape to adhere the sentiment because I wanted it to be popped up a little compared to the images. And that completes card number 8. That was a very easy one to make, and there are so many different cutter parts in the pattern paper pack that you could make a variety of cards with this idea. So card 8 had several animals on, and this one is also going to have some animals. I'm going to use 2 strips of pattern paper, so each covering about half of the card base, and again I'll use my Tombow glue to allow me some wiggle room to get them properly into place. I adhered the plainer yellow paper first and then layered the animal party paper on top of it and get that one lined up as well. And I realised once I had it stuck down that it hadn't cut completely straight, but luckily in the finished design it's not too obvious, it's only very slightly angled, and because a lot of that divide gets covered up, you can't tell as easily that it's a bit wonky. I'm going to use one of the acetate pieces here, and I'm going to adhere a sentiment banner across it, just with my liquid glue, just kind of going across the zebra. I decided not to back the acetate with white this time, partly because I thought it would take too long to fussy cut around. Whilst the banner dries into place on that, I will add a peel off down the divide of the 2 pattern papers. As I said earlier, I feel that this helps to give a kind of finished look to the edge. Then I put some foam tape behind the banner on my acetate piece, and this allows me to attach the acetate piece without the adhesive showing through, which completes card number 9. And on to my final card, I'm going to use some more of that same yellow pattern paper piece. And here I'm using some of the snippets from the very top portion of each of the pattern papers. These have, of course, a hole in the middle because it's kind of where the paper would hang on a hook in the shops, for example. And these pieces aren't necessarily intended to be used, but I like to find a way to use them. I've done this in other videos, and I'll try to remember to link to one up in the cards in the top right hand corner. These can easily be used as long as you are hiding that hole, which this design worked very well for hiding the hole in both of those pieces of paper. So if you weren't seeing me making the card now, you wouldn't know that those strips were not complete. I added some more peel-offs along, and here again I decided to use snippety bits that you might not necessarily use, so they're all just very little pieces that are just long enough to go behind my topper. So this card's a good way to use up odds and ends if you want. I added my cake ephemera piece with my liquid glue, and I'm going to use the same glue to adhere my panel to my card base. And I'm using a red card base here. I thought that just went well with the colours I'd used. So I'll get that panel lined up and press it into place once I'm happy with the alignment. And then as a final touch, I'm going to use some Nuvo drops in Limoncello. As with my previous card that I used Nuvo drops on, I'm choosing a colour that matches, so it's very subtle look. I quite like to use my Nuvo drops like this. I feel like it's the way I use them most often, is to have a subtle extra embellishment rather than something that stands out a lot. And that completes my 10th card. I hope you enjoyed these cards. I'd love to hear which one you like most. As I said, all the items in this kit will be linked down below, even though the kit itself is not available. There's a lot of stuff I didn't use. There are even, I think, 5 card bases still, so I could make more cards with this, and maybe I'll make some more next year. Next Stamptember, we shall see about that. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up down below so that YouTube knows you like to see more of my videos. You can subscribe using the button on screen, and there are a couple more videos on screen as well that you might enjoy. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!